I hope you'll have some fun learning how to use Excel spreadsheets. You could take courses for 5 years in a row and still not cover everything that Excel can do. And we're going to do one quick lesson here to see a lot of the features to use formatting and sorting and formulas. So if you opened assignment 10, payroll spreadsheet to start out with, payroll is a good example. Every teacher uses payroll as an example to begin spreadsheets, but you could use any kind of application where you want to organize a chart of data, or if you want to do arithmetic with any kind of numbers, spreadsheet is going to be your choice of applications. So let's make sure everybody understands how the payroll for our very tiny company is going to work. And we're going to just have a small number of employees, but the beauty of spreadsheet is once we have a spreadsheet set up for 8 or 10 employees, we could easily just repeat it for 800 employees and it would work just as quickly. Okay, so how we're going to pay our employees, like most places, for the first 40 hours each week, you earn your hourly wage. If you work more than 40 hours in the week, generally your employer would pay you time and a half. What time and one half means is if you basically would earn $10 an hour, then for the first 40 hours, of course, you would earn $400, 40 times 10. But if you worked 41 hours, then for that extra hour, you wouldn't earn $10. You would earn time and a half. So you would earn $15 an hour only for that one extra hour. So you'd have to be above 40 hours before you start earning time and a half. And then we've got a sales company, so to encourage our employees to sell more, we're also going to let them keep 5% of the commission on any sales amount that exceeds whatever we tell them is their target goal. And for sake of the discussion here with spreadsheet, we're going to give every employee a different target goal. And we're not going to make this very practical data because I really want to show you how spreadsheets can be used in lots of different situations. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is notice when I click in a cell that we can see up here what cell we're in. Remember that column comes first, vertical is column, so we are in column D, and I was in row 8. So D8 tells us the cell number. This F stands for formula, our function, and formula and function, it uses the same symbol when you were looking for equations in Microsoft Word. So you'll get used to seeing that F, formulas and functions. And here we just typed, I already typed a list of names, but we want to make it clear what we're working on here. So I'm going to click in cell C5, and I'm going to type a headline called Payroll Report. And I'm going to hit the caps lock key and type Payroll Report. And you can see that it's wider than the column width, but that's okay. Excel just lets it run over into the next cell. And we can do something about that later if we want to change the format. We're going to make this look nice and pretty before we finish and are ready to print it. And then I'm going to put in some column headings. So this I'm going to turn off the caps lock and I'm going to put name for this column heading. And if I hit the return key, which is my habit, return defaults to vertically going down the column. So when we're in that, then we click in the next cell. Notice, by the way, that the cell cursor looks like that fat plus sign. So you'll know that you're in a cell of a spreadsheet. In my next column, I'm going to put sales total. And instead of hitting the return so that I don't go down, I can use the right arrow to jump to the next column. And here I'm going to put target, goal. And I'm going to hit the right arrow. And I'm going to put hourly wage. And right arrow. And then I'm going to put hours worked. And you can see it's very hard to read because these are too wide. And then I'm going to go to my next column, and it's going to say standard pay. Notice, by the way, that you can see up in the entry line up here next to the function symbol, the entry line is an easy place to read if you find it difficult to read down below. So this is standard pay, and right arrow. Overtime pay, if any, might be 0 for some folks. And then I'm going to right arrow, and I'm going to put their total, and we'll come back. And I intentionally skipped something I want to put in so that we can learn how to insert a column later. So if you're one step ahead of me, I didn't put in commission. We're going to go back and put that in later. Okay, so whether we want to make our column widths different right now or whether we want to come back and do that later, that's a matter of choice. Just so that you're not distracted by that, I'm going to show you how to make the columns wider or narrower. The easiest way, there are other ways, the easiest way, Washington doesn't fit in this first column. So notice that as I move, if I click here, it selects the entire column. But as I move across, you can see that when I get right on the border, do you see it changes to this double arrow cursor? So I'm clicking on the border line and dragging it. And now don't make it wider than you need to because we don't want to waste space on our paper. And I want the next column. If I made each of these as wide as it would take, let's go to standard pay column here. If I made it that wide, I'd be wasting a lot of paper. So instead, I'm going to put that back about where it was. I'm not going to be real precise. I'm going to show you one thing that can save you some space in your column headings. I'm going to highlight all my column headings. And on the Home tab, you should find a choice that says Wrap the Text. So let's click Wrap Text and see how that's going to work nicely. So wrap around means if it doesn't fit, wrap around to the next line below. And now I'm still not too fond of how those look, so I might choose hitting the center key. That might look a little bit nicer if I click off. We're getting there. Those look like better column headings. While we're doing this, why not? Let's make our column headings bold and let's make them a little bit larger so before we work on our column width. So I made those 14 point because now I know how wide I want my columns to be. And we might as well go change our payroll report title as well. We certainly would want it to be larger than our column heading. So let's say 20. Let's make it boldface. And why not? We'll be using some colors later, so we could start right away with changing colors. I think I'll leave most of that to come back to at the end. We're going to put in a lot of borders and colors before we finish. But let's finish our numeric entries first and come back to do some of that. Okay, column widths. These two columns look fine. Hourly wage looks fine. But column E looks like it needs to be a little wider, just a hair wider. And column F needs to be a little bit wider. And G, overtime pay, that's our biggest word, overtime. So we could either make the word overtime be smaller, or we've got to make the column wider. And here, let's do the easy thing and make the column wider. So we'll be able to read our data pretty well right now. All right, now I want to put in some numeric data. And I suspect that in the real world, the amount that our employees sell would be all kinds of random numbers, and they might have dollars and cents. To keep this quick and easy, I want to show you that Excel can do patterns of numbers. So I'm going to say that Washington sold $50,000 of our product, whatever. We're selling cars or machinery or something that our company manufactures. And instead of having to type a lot of numbers here, I'm going to say each of these employees sold $2,000 less than the employee above. So if Washington sold $50,000, Jefferson sold $48,000. And now we could continue typing, but that would be silly. We're using a spreadsheet, and spreadsheets do arithmetic for us. So I highlight these two boxes, And then we get this solid square in the corner, and it lets us replicate or copy the formula. So we click on that corner. Notice how the cursor changed to that plus sign. So I hover over that corner, click and drag, and it's going to copy the pattern. So watch what happens. Excel was smart enough to see that we wanted it to count by negative 2,000. So each employee sold 2,000 less. Let's go to our target goal, and for sake of the discussion then, let's count upwards. So let's say the target goal for Washington was 38,000. I'm completely making this up, completely random. And now let's count up by 1,000. So I only have to do the first 2 entries so that Excel can see the pattern. And then I highlight the 2 cells that show the formula pattern, and I click in the corner and I copy the formula down. Okay, so each of these values is just counting by 1,000. So here we were going up, here we were going by negative 2,000. But it's a quick way to fill in those columns. So if I wanted to put a number in front of my employees, let me just go over in this blank space here. So if I put the number 1 and then the number 2, this is probably what you will replicate the most often. And then if I drag down, you see that we get consecutive numbers. But I don't really need those here, so I'm just going to delete those values. They're highlighted, I just hit the delete key. Okay, back where we were. Scroll bar. Let's get back up so we can see our spreadsheet. Our hourly wage. I hope that I would pay my employees more than this, but to keep our arithmetic simple, I'm going to put $10 an hour for the first 3 employees here. And then we'll be a little more realistic here. We'll say this employee is $45 an hour, and this one's $38 and $50, $52. Please type the same numbers that I am so that when we put in our formulas, we'll all get the same answers, okay? And $30, and we'll say $25 here. So no rhyme or reason, just to have some values to work with, okay? And the hours worked in the next column. Let's have a little bit of a pattern here for these first 3 easy values. Let's say that this employee, Washington, worked 35 hours, Jefferson 40 hours, and Adams 45 hours. And then the rest we can just do some at random. So we'll say some of them. Let's have 50 hours, did a lot of hours, 10 overtime hours, 33, 41, exactly 40, 42, and 39. All right, so we've got a variety there. Okay, these values over here will be different for each employee, and we're going to let the spreadsheet figure that out, so we have to learn how to use formulas. And I'm going to continue with the formulas in part 2 of this video.